morning, and thank you for coming to this briefing by Assistant Secretary of State for International Security and Nonproliferation Thomas Countryman and Coordinator for Threat Reduction Programs Ambassador Bonnie Jenkins. Just a quick note on the ground rules before we introduce our speakers. This briefing will be 45 minutes and on the record. The speakers will make brief opening remarks, and then we will open the floor for questions. Please keep questions within the scope of the topic being briefed. Please also provide your name and outlet before asking your questions, and direct your questions to either Assistant Secretary Countryman or Ambassador Jenkins, or both. With that, we are honored to welcome Ambassador Jenkins and Assistant Secretary Countryman. Ambassador Jenkins, your opening remarks.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm just going to spend just a few minutes talking about the summit and why we're here, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Assistant Secretary Countryman. I think all of you are aware of the importance of the issue of nuclear security of materials. As you know, this whole venture was started back in 2009 when President Obama said that nuclear terrorism is one of the greatest threats that we face today. As a result of that statement that he made, we have had 4 very successful summits. We've had quite a bit of achievements as a result of these summits. One of the things that's most important about this effort is the actual activities that are taking place. It's always been an effort to do real action and to make sure that we actually achieve a strengthening of security of nuclear materials. You will see today, and if you check the website that we have, a list of a number of very, very important achievements that have been made as a result of the over 50 countries that have worked on this effort, along with relevant, important international organizations. We've strengthened physical security of radiological facilities. We've strengthened physical security of nuclear material facilities. We've installed a number of radioactive detection at border crossings, seaports, and airports. We've gotten rid of surplus HEU. We have prevented the threat of nuclear terrorism through the establishment of counter-nuclear smuggling teams, and the list goes on and on. So one thing that we can honestly say about this effort, which has pulled together a number of countries to work together, is that we have achieved quite a bit. There's always more to do, and one of the important things about this summit is sustainability. It's a transition summit. How do we make sure that the efforts that we have done up to this point will continue in the future if we don't know if there will be another summit? So one of the things that's important about this today is making sure that we recognize as a global community the importance of this issue in the future and making sure that the work that we have done continues. We also want to engage more countries in this effort. We had over 50 countries in this one, but of course there's many more countries that we would like to engage. So there's also been thinking about how we can take this forward in engaging more countries. You will also see action plans that will be released. These are plans that a number of international organizations will hopefully pursue in the future. The summit participants have agreed to take action and to try to work with these international organizations to continue to strengthen the very good work that they are already doing in nuclear security. So with that, I think I would like to turn it over to my colleague, and I'll be prepared for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm the Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of International Security and Nonproliferation, and I'd like to say just a couple of words about how the Nuclear Security Summit process fits into the much broader agenda of nonproliferation and disarmament. Every United States president for the last 60 years has focused on the dangers of nuclear weapons. And this has been consistent bipartisan policy of the United States that has gained even greater energy and momentum in the Obama administration. And the Nuclear Security Summit, one of the real innovations of this administration, is focused not just on declarations, not just on meetings, but on concrete, practical results in reducing the risk that terrorists could ever acquire nuclear material. So it's a very specific question with many ramifications that the leaders are discussing today. But the broader agenda of disarmament and nonproliferation proceeds as well, apart from the Nuclear Security Summit process. And we've had notable successes during the Obama administration. First, of course, the New START treaty negotiated between the Russian Federation and the United States will reduce, by the year 2018, will reduce the nuclear arsenals of the Russian Federation and the United States by 80% from the height of the Cold War. We're eliminating nuclear weapons, and both Russia and the U.S. are implementing that agreement faithfully. Second, as the President briefed just an hour ago, the negotiation of the Joint Comprehensive Program of Action with Iran helps to close one of the biggest open wounds in the non-proliferation regime around the world. We've reached an agreement through diplomacy and through the pressure of sanctions that effectively closes off every pathway Iran could pursue towards a nuclear weapon. We face, of course, remaining challenges. We seek to restart and re-energize arms control negotiations with the Russian Federation and hope that the political conditions will make that possible for Russia to accept the standing offer the President has made. And of course, we face a genuine challenge from North Korea, not just in its capabilities, but in its rhetoric and in its penchant for reckless action. But on these issues, as with Iran, as with the Nuclear Security Summit, the United States is committed not just to leadership, but to cooperation with partners around the world in order to achieve that very long-term goal that President Obama outlined in Prague in 2009, the achievement of the security of a world without nuclear weapons. So thank you, and we look forward to your questions.
Thank you for your remarks. We will now take your questions. As a reminder, please state your name and outlet and to whom your question is directed.
Hello, my name is Christian Madsen. I'm from Politiken in Denmark. I'm not sure if this is to the Assistant Secretary or the Ambassador or both of you, but could you speak a little to how Russia's staying away has impacted the opportunity to reach the stated goals of this summit? And if you expect, if and when these 5 action plans are implemented and this move to a more multilateral framework, do you expect Russia's attitude towards this to change when this is sort of a less American-driven process and in a more multilateral framework? Thank you.
I guess I'll start with that question. Thank you. Russia has been a part of the summit. They were part of the first 3 summits in 2010, 2012, and 2014. And they were a part of the number of commitments that were made in terms of actions in nuclear security. And while it is unfortunate that they're not at this summit, I think you will see that the summit will still be very successful in that this is a global issue. And so it involves all countries, not just the countries who are here, but the countries who are not here. And so this remains an issue that's important to all countries, regardless of which countries may not actually be at the summit. However, there is a recognition, of course, about the material that, of course, is in Russia. We continue to have discussions with Russia. We have worked with Russia in a number of contexts, not only in terms of removal of HEU from another number of countries, but also through the Global Initiative to Combat Nuclear Terrorism and other bilateral discussions that we continue to have with them. So while they are not here at this summit, we will continue to work with them in our bilateral relationships, in other multilateral relationships, and in other areas in which we can move things forward, including what we just said about the JCPOA. As far as the 5 action plans, Russia is, of course, a member of a number of the international organizations and initiatives that the summit participants have agreed to move forward. So that will actually be another venue and provide other venues in which we can try to work with Russia to try to move some of these issues forward on nuclear material. So I think the important thing to keep in mind is that the work that we need to do with Russia does not end because they're not here. This is an issue that we need to continue beyond 2016, beyond tomorrow, and we're going to work with the entire international community, including Russia, as we make sure that we continue to sustain the work that's been achieved and to continue to work on this important issue of nuclear security.
I would only add, we have no doubt that Russia takes very seriously its obligation to secure nuclear material within the Russian Federation. They spend money on it, they work hard, they have good procedures, and they've improved the security dramatically, not just in the last 25 years, but also in the last 6 years. So we have no doubt about their commitment to the principle.
Next question.
Hi, Leslie Rawton from Reuters. I was wondering whether the US was concerned about plans to start reprocessing plant in Japan in 2018, which could lead to competition to stockpile nuclear materials in East Asia. And do you believe, and also whether the US would like to see a freezing in reprocessing? Yesterday, China said it was committed to its plans for nuclear reprocessing.
Well, thank you. Anyone who produces plutonium has to answer some really tough questions. Inherently, plutonium poses big questions of non-proliferation and of nuclear security, as well as of national security. In addition, it is phenomenally expensive compared to the other alternatives for dealing with spent nuclear fuel from ordinary reactors. Before any country commits to such a program, we believe that they have an obligation to be transparent with the world about not only the non-proliferation concerns, the security concerns, but also the economic concerns. And of course, an obligation to be transparent with their own people about those choices. In the specific case of Japan, we understand that the Rokusho reprocessing plant is not currently scheduled to open in the next 2 years. We regard Japan's policy of not accumulating plutonium for which there is not a scheduled foreseen use to be very important. And we note that Japan has implemented that policy consistently and transparently.
Next question.
I'm from China, People's Daily. Now we are talking about the post-summit era. So you think in the future, IEA or other international organizations will take a really active role and in leadership of that? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. The IAEA has been a part of this summit process from the beginning, and there's always been a very, very strong recognition of the important role of the IAEA in terms of nuclear security. In fact, if you look at any of the communiques from the past summits, you will see the importance that the summit participants have put on the IAEA in terms of their expertise and their history in this issue. You will see that quite a few countries provide funding to the IAEA Nuclear Security Fund because we realize the important role that they play, that the institution plays. And all through these last discussions with the Sherpas leading up to this summit, there's been a constant recognition that when we talk about transition and talk about the future, that the IAEA has to play a critical role in addition to other international organizations that do work in this area. The IAEA is working very hard right now to get the final ratifications of the Convention on Physical Protection of Nuclear Material Amendment, and we're down to just a few. They're also planning to have a ministerial in December on nuclear security. They have one every 3 years, and we recognize that this is going to be a great opportunity to have our first major multilateral meeting after the summit focusing on this issue of nuclear security. And the IAEA recognizes this and takes it very seriously. And when you look at the action plans, when they are posted on the website, you will see that every single action plan for all the different organizations highlight the important role of the IAEA. And you will also see in the IAEA's action plan the activities that the summit participants agreed that the IAEA would need to do to continue its important role. So I can very confidently say that the IAEA has played an important role, has played an important role in this summit in the area of strengthening nuclear security, and will certainly play an important role after the summit.
Next question.
Hi, Ryan Faith with Vice News. I'm a bit unclear on why the summits are coming to an end. What was the motivation for the U.S. to get involved and take this leadership role that we've now accomplished whatever we're going to accomplish, and now we can, basically exit ourselves from this process?
Very briefly, our lingo that we say for this summit is the last summit in its current format. And the reason why we say that is because we're not sure it's the last summit. Of course, it's the last summit that President Obama will be attending as president, but it does not mean necessarily that other countries may not wish to hold a summit, and it doesn't mean that the next U.S. president won't hold a summit. So we don't say it's the final. We say it's the final in its current format. There could be another summit that may have a different format in the future. So the reason why we say that is because it's the last one identified with the president. And then, of course, but one of the things we are trying to do, as I might have said earlier, is try to figure out a way in which some of this can continue, not only through the action plans, but as you will see when documents are posted on the website, there has been discussion with some of the Sherpas as how they can meet, or other experts can meet in the future, maybe once a year, to see how the action plans are being implemented, to see how the national commitments are being implemented. So there is certainly thinking about doing something in the future, maybe not at a state level, but that countries can get together and do this, in addition to the things like the IAEA does with its ministerial.
I would add that the purpose of doing something so dramatic as initiating a summit meeting of 50 world leaders to discuss a single topic is to raise consciousness and to convey urgency. And the process has succeeded in doing that. It's now up to all the countries here to sustain that top of government level of attention.
Hi, good morning. This is Jackie Jia with CCTV America. The question is for maybe both of you. In President Obama's speech earlier this morning, he gave very high assessment on the collaboration between the US and China on building the largest nuclear security demonstration center in Asia. So in your opinion, what are the other practical collaborations between the two countries are going to have, and how do you evaluate China's role in this year's nuclear summit? Thank you very much.
I think I'll start talking more, and I'll talk more about the center, and Tom may want to say a little bit more overall. Yes, just a couple of weeks ago, China opened its Center of Excellence, and that was quite an achievement. It's following up on a commitment that China made at our first summit in 2010. So it's something that China was able to do very closely working with the United States. So we're very happy to see that this center is open. We're going to continue to work with China in terms of the training courses that will be taught at the center. So our collaboration with China will continue even after the center has been opened. The center will be very important in terms of the region. Actually, there are 3 centers of excellence in that region. There's one in China, one in South Korea, and one in Japan. And the 3 countries have already established something called the Asia Network, in which they are working together to try to collaborate and to try to make sure that they can take advantage of the advantages of each of the centers, that they don't overlap. So, and the U.S. has been very instrumental in helping with those other 2 centers as well. So this has been a very great achievement. The fact that they did this at this point, and the fact that it's happening at this last summit in its current format, I think is an indication to the fact that China will continue to play a role in the training of people, which is the human factor, which is so important in terms of nuclear security, and that they will help ensure the sustainability of this important issue after this summit.
Whether the question is nuclear security or broader questions of disarmament and non-proliferation, or indeed any issue of global significance, it is essential that China and the United States find a means for respectable dialogue and common action. Ambassador Jenkins described this specifically with regard to nuclear security, but across the spectrum of nuclear and related issues, our cooperation is deep and improving. Right now, nuclear reactors are being built in China that incorporate United States technology, and we renegotiated last year our agreement on civil nuclear cooperation. In addition, as the President pointed out this morning when he met with the EU 3+3, it is essential that China, as one of those 6 states, works hard and cooperatively with us in complete implementation of the Joint Comprehensive Program of Action with Iran. Our negotiation together was a success, and our implementation has to be just as well coordinated. In addition, in the most urgent nuclear issue facing us, the threat that North Korea poses not only to South Korea, but to Japan, to the United States, and to China, China has the central role in moderating North Korean behavior. And to that end, we work together on what we call strategic trade controls. That is, enforcing the new United Nations resolution that imposes additional controls on North Korea's acquisition of technology. And unfortunately, most of the technology that North Korea has obtained from overseas has come from Chinese companies. So this is one where we are working together actively with China, and if we succeed in the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, it will only be because of determined Chinese action in coordination with the U.S.
I think I would also just add briefly that China has been part of the summit process from the very beginning and has been a very strong partner in this effort. When you look at the gift baskets, when those are posted on the website, and if you don't know what a gift basket is, those are commitments made by a subsets of the summit participants focusing on specific activities. You will see that China has signed on to a number of gift baskets in which they commit to take certain actions to strengthen nuclear security past the summit. So I think that will also give you an understanding of what China is actually going to be doing following the summit in terms of nuclear security, in addition to what Countryman has said.
Jeff Tollefson with Nature Magazine. Can you talk a little bit about the supply of HEU fuel for high-performance research reactors in Europe? I'm thinking in particular of FRM and the dispute there, but also for the others. I don't know if the UK swap will go to other research reactors as well, or not, and I don't know about this the deal with Germany and how that fits into this picture.
I'm not as familiar with that, Tom.
It's a little bit down in the weeds. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's a very specific question that I don't think I can give you a good answer right here.
That's why we always rely on our DOE colleagues for a lot of this.
But, come see us afterwards, and we'll get an answer to you.
Right.
Next question?
I'm Inoue from Kyoto News. President Obama, at the beginning of the plenary meeting, praised P5+1 Iran dealing. And I wonder why President Rouhani is not here. So I wonder why you did not invite him here to attend this summit. Thank you.
We invited the same countries that were invited to the last 2 summits. We invited the same list of countries that were invited to the last 2 summits.
Patrick Malone with the Center for Public Integrity here in Washington. My question has to do with the current budget proposal from the Obama administration related to international nuclear security. It seems to have been pared quite a bit when we compare it to past years and even the current year. What are the reasons for those reductions, and what are we losing by not spending at historic levels?
I probably won't be able to answer that one. I think that's, a lot of that's probably in the NNSA budgets, so I'm probably not as familiar with that specific.
No, I would, look, you understand Washington. You understand political constraints and budget constraints. And in particular, the Department of Energy budget is large and is complex and involves very difficult trade-offs in the field of energy and non-proliferation. So I don't think that I could give you a more detailed analysis than that of the choices that are made in the interplay between the administration and Congress. I can tell you that the United States has been active and generous in developing the non-proliferation capabilities of countries around the world. Department of Energy has contributed to a number of countries around the world radiation portals that allow those countries to be sure that radioactive material or nuclear material is not entering or leaving their country through land or sea or air borders. Similarly, again, Department of Energy, with some support from the Department of Defense and the Department of State, have helped a number of countries to make the specific kinds of nuclear security improvements that are being discussed at this summit today. So we do good work, we do important work, and when the budget process allows it, I hope that we can spread that beneficial work to still more partners around the world.
One more question.
Hi, Yasmin Al-Sabawi, Kuwait News Agency. Could you speak to some of the other hotspots? I mean, I'm thinking of nuclear states like India, Pakistan. What's the risk assessment there, whether it's the tension between the two states and also, quote unquote, bad actors in that area having access to nuclear material? Thanks.
Yeah. Well, concerning India and Pakistan, of course, we have to be concerned, as we are concerned about any country in the world where there are significant quantities of nuclear material and where there are also active terrorist groups. But at the same time, we know from our intensive work with both of these partners that both Pakistan and India take their responsibility of providing security for their nuclear materials very seriously. And they have shown important improvement in their capability to protect that material in both countries. So that's part of the dialogue that we have with them. We won't stop worrying about this and about 100 other things in the nuclear field, but the progress has been significant, and it also comes in the context of our aim to have India and Pakistan engage with each other more actively on confidence-building measures and tension-reducing measures in both conventional and nuclear field.
I think what I would just add to that is through this process, the summit process, we have had India and Pakistan part of the summit from the very beginning. And it has been really very important to have both India and Pakistan in the process, and they have made a number of commitments through their own statements and also reflected some of the progress reports that they have both provided to us. And just being part of the discussions has been important. I think in terms of issues of hotspots, in this area, when we talk about the work that's been done, one of the things that's been most impressive is the way in which a number of countries who may have hotspots, reflective of what you're saying, have been able to pull together and focus on an important issue together and come to agreement on a number of important issues that's of global concern and affects everyone. I can say, for example, in the case of Pakistan, I was out to Islamabad recently visiting their Center of Excellence. And this was a great opportunity to see how Pakistan is training scientists, technicians, engineers on very important issues related to nuclear security. And that is not only important for continuing the work that we're doing now, but also making sure that future generations also understand the importance of securing a nuclear material. They're very active also in the IAEA Nuclear Security Support Center network, leading some of the working that's going on there. And they also recently ratified the Conventional Treaty on Physical Protection. The amendment was ratified a couple of weeks ago now. So being part of this process, I think, has been very good in terms of focusing attention on this particular issue, despite the hotspots that may exist. And I think that they have shown that there's real interest in taking real steps in nuclear security.
Thank you very much for your questions. With that, I'll provide a brief opportunity for our speakers if they have any closing remarks. Assistant Secretary Countryman?
Stay tuned. There are important results that come out of here as we transition from this summit process to a continued focus by other means on this crucial question.
I guess I would just add that I hope that all of you will continue to be interested in this issue after today. There will be a lot the things are being posted on the website as we speak. So when you go back, you'll see the progress reports have been posted, gift baskets are being posted. These things are rolling out through the entire day. So by the end of the day, you will see everything, and the last thing to be released will be the communique and the 5 action plans. So we hope that you will look at those, that you will take them and look at those for next week or so, or for our future weeks, and that you will continue to be engaged in this issue because it's important not only that those of us in government and the non-governmental sector are working on this, but also that those of you in the media also see the importance of this issue. So thank you.
And with that, it concludes our on-the-record briefing. Thank you to our speakers, and thank you to the journalists for participating.